Welcome to the Cybersecurity Simplified Podcast, where we take the mystery out of today's top security threats and solutions. ChatGPT is the talk of every town, dominating tech conversations around the world. But like any AI-powered tool, it brings with it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is ChatGPT a blessing or a threat? A boon for business or the bane of our existence? A cybersecurity tool or a hacker's weapon? Our guest today is Aaron Martin, Overwatch Director of Security Engineering. Aaron has many years of experience as a software architect and security analyst and is here to share his insights and predictions about ChatGPT's impact on cybersecurity. Stay tuned as we talk to Aaron about the ultimate Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of chatbots. Hi, friends. I'm co-host Susanna Song.
And I'm co-host Dave Barton.
And David, I have literally been counting down the days for this episode. Haven't you?
You like this idea, don't you?
Well, yeah, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's, trying it out. And, I get it. We probably have folks across the spectrum when it comes to this tool, some who have never used it, some who are probably nervous to use it, those who probably read about it nonstop and are crazy about it. So I figured, we're Cybersecurity Simplified. There are cybersecurity implications around this tool, so why not?
Yep. We see it on nightly news. There's stories about it all the time. And to your point, it is relevant to everything we do in the cyberspace. In fact, it's probably going to have even more relevance as we continue to evolve ChatGPT and go to version 4 and whatever comes after that. Mm-hmm. It's just going to continue to make our jobs more interesting for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's bring Aaron into the conversation and start around generative AI led by ChatGPT, why it makes sense, why it's helpful, the good, right, of the trifecta, what the good aspects of it. So it's all yours, Aaron.
All right. The good aspects of ChatGPT. Where to begin? So there's a lot of applications, I think, even just in the forefront of what we're experiencing with ChatGPT. You see a lot of people using it for common things, like what I do. I use it to write emails back to Dave all the time. Who needs to talk to him when you can have a robot do it? There's a lot of applications around just general chatbots with, actually, I think we use something similar today with our website, or at least we're looking at doing that soon. We're asking a question and it responds to you. So there's a lot of applications there. There's a lot of applications that we're going to start seeing in the healthcare field. And
I think to that point, Aaron, just for a second, asking it questions in human form or human language form and having it interpreted into something that humans that aren't coders can do is truly the power of this platform, right? And to your point, customer says, tell me about this event and or show me this, did this thing happen? Or more importantly, I'm writing a term paper on macroeconomics and I want it to write me an outline. Tell me all of the political pressures impacting microeconomics in the U.S. in 2023. It'll do it.
I think that's what we're getting to is, ChatGPT is slowly and, maybe one day is going to replace the common search engine. Because why do you need to go and search Google and ask, hey, how do I write X, Y, and Z when, kind of reiterating what you just said, when it's going to kind of just verbatim tell you what you need. You don't have to bounce it back and forth to 15 different research sites. It's going to tell you everything at once. So that is kind of the power of what we're getting to.
Yeah, and aren't we kind of using it already? So my kids, we've got the Google device all over our house, and they're always asking, hey, Google, like random questions and facts that they want to know, right? That's generative AI, isn't that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Same that's thing really
Siri's based off of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Siri, Alexa, those are really all probably generation 2 kind of AI conversation tools But I think where we're going, Susanna, is even bigger, right? So if you asked Alexa, the same question I just asked, show me what are the impacts of our economy on, what the macro economy on the United States in 2023, Alexa's not going to know how to answer that question, but ChatGPT does.
Yeah, kind of what I was hinting at around, healthcare space. I've already seen people starting to develop applications of, hey, I'm in an emergency situation. How do I perform CPR? And it's telling you step by step how to perform CPR. And there's other, I don't want to say life-saving applications like that, but never know. In the future, we very well could see these type of life-saving applications. There's still a lot, I think, to be desired, but it's slowly getting there. Or
does ChatGPT write
like a freight train?
Does ChatGPT write code for you? Can it?
So I think this is kind of where we're leading into the current iteration of the bad. So ChatGPT and a lot of its stuff, it sounds really smart, but it doesn't get the job done. I know a lot of people, and I've tried myself to ask it to write a simple program, because it's a learned language model and it's going based off of what humans have generated. It knows how to make it look and sound smart. But in a lot of common iterations today, you can ask it how to write a script to, open up an Excel sheet. It's going to write it, but it's more than likely it's not going to run. There's still a lot left there. And you could say maybe that's just because people put out a lot of buggy code, and so ChatGPT is just learning buggy code. But I've seen people ask it to build, computer program, or but like computer games and stuff like that, and it'll get some aspects right, but a lot of aspects it gets wrong and doesn't work.
Well, and I've seen, to answer your question, Susanna, we have seen in the wild folks who have no business writing malware using ChatGPT to compile malware and make it weaponized for a particular organization. So we have seen that in the wild, but to Aaron's point, it's a little more difficult. You still have to have somebody who can go and review that code and make sure it works. So is it going to build a car by scratch? No, but it can get close. And then that's where the engineering expertise comes in to finish that design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ChatGPT definitely has left, as we segue to the bad, left a lot of folks unsettled. David, like you said, there's, breach risks, data exposure, compliance implications. So
just to answer, just to marry on that, there are some real world implications of ChatGPT using human developed content. So if you rewind, when ChatGPT first came out, it would tell you that Hillary Clinton won the election. She didn't win the election. We all know this, but ChatGPT said she did. And so if you think about what's coming, when we think about the future, we've got an election coming up that's going to be pretty interesting, probably fairly polarizing on both sides. And people will create content that is blatantly false, and ChatGPT will pick that up and it will perpetrate's the wrong word, perpetuate that misinformation. And so it's going to be really interesting and very difficult for people to discern what's right and what's wrong. Because ChatGPT, who's winning in Alaska? Because you're voting. You don't want to vote for a loser, right? So who's winning? I want to vote for the winner. And it could tell you all kinds of things. So it's going to be interesting.
There's also a case of, actually this just happened a few weeks ago, of a lawyer who she was working a case, and she just asked ChatGPT, hey, I need 3 similar cases to what I'm working on. Something that, typically they would just go through old case files or old laws, yada, 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 go find all that. ChatGPT spit out 3 cases. She wrote what she needed to. She presented to the court, and the judge asked her, who presided over these cases, when did these cases take place, X, Y, and Z. And she couldn't really answer them. She goes, well, he asked her, how did you find this? ChatGPT. Come to find out, ChatGPT made up 3 fake case studies.
What?
And she tried to cite those in court, and I'm pretty sure she got thrown out. So
totally did.
Oh, man.
Because it's learned language, it's learning, and it's not always compiling truth. It's compiling what it wants. And that kind of goes back to it can't really code yet because it wants to code. It wants to be smart, but it just hasn't. Now all the fuzzy dots are connected yet.
It can't code, but can it modernize the code that retired coders have left behind and improve the code?
I've seen instances of people who have asked it. They send a snippet of their code and say, hey, this isn't working. What's wrong with it? And it has decompiled and ran it and gave some pretty accurate results on findings. So I think there's some qualities around QA and testing that we'll see, and we're already kind of starting to see. Modernizing code, I don't know if anyone's done that yet, or if they have, I definitely haven't read up on it. I think that's a good use case because we see, maybe we'll see, but as we've got COBOL and AS400 and all these old technologies that are a lot of our central services like banking and stuff are still built on, but we don't have anyone to develop on them. Maybe if we can start using something like ChatGPT to, I don't know, move it to Python or whatever, Go or whatever the latest and greatest language everyone's using, that, maybe we don't have to be worried about our banks one day going down because no one knows how to write AS400 code.
Right. That could be a potential a win for all of those legacy platforms.
Yeah.
So how do cybersecurity analysts and practitioners then put controls around this?
I think that's part of the problem we're still facing is how do we put the cat back in the bag? And the cat's out. Much like all of the AI that we see every day, if not governed, has a potential of having malicious outputs.
I think we've seen 1 or 2 countries who have just flat out banned ChatGPT from the country. I think Romania was one of them. But I mean, stopping your employees from using it, I mean, sure, when there's from a layer 7 firewall perspective, maybe you could block a category and you block the category of AI or ChatGPT if that category exists yet. But like Dave said, it's kind of hard to put the seal back on.
So there's some conversations about having localized copies of ChatGPT running. So, let's say you're AT&T and you want to enable it for your people, but not have your data available to ChatGPT on the internet. So you put it in locally, you deploy it locally, it goes and crawls all of your network, it learns everything it needs to know. And then when you ask ChatGPT, it all stays inside. One of the risks of ChatGPT that we've seen is, in fact, there was a case this weekend where someone hacked into ChatGPT and took 100,000 sets of credentials. Why that matters is if I can log into Aaron's ChatGPT, I can see what types of queries he's been running, right? Maybe he's got some intellectual property he's working on and he's trying to see, does anybody have something similar? And now I have his ideas that I could take and run with. Or, maybe there's something in there about Susanna and you're searching for something and the disclosure of that would be damaging, embarrassing, whatever. And so now these 100,000 accounts are out there in the wild. And if I log into that account, I can see and potentially get access to the data you're pulling down out of ChatGPT. So there's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of reward, right? If it can speed up and make things easier, to Aaron's point, maybe you can resurrect a legacy operating system because even though you can't find somebody who knows how to program it, there is a ton of benefit, but the challenge is still, how do we put the cat back in the bag? Or how do we put controls around something that it's impossible to do? Now, couple of things ChatGPT has done in version 3 was they took some offensive language out. They did some things to have less risk when you run a query and the output that comes back. But even then, it's still there, and you can still use it to do nefarious things. And I don't know how we're going to stop it. I don't know how we're going to protect our companies.
Yeah, because there's really no law enforcement over AI to say this is inaccurate or you're using it in a detrimental way to cause harm, to hack into a system or to steal credentials. I think, as we mentioned earlier, I threw in the ugly just because, why not? There's the phrase, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right. Yeah.
But when I think about ugly, as we transition now to that third and last component, like when is it too late? There are people out there definitely scared of AI because they think it's going to one day rule, just human sense, human intelligence. There's no moral compass. When does it get to that point where it's like, maybe this was not a good idea?
Wow. We're getting philosophical here for a second. What do you think, Aaron?
I was going to touch on the ugly from a security perspective and what we're seeing today. And then we could come back to the, do we see a Skynet Terminator situation one day?
Like in the movies, yeah.
Yeah, I think already, we're already living in the ugly. We're already seeing, like Dave mentioned earlier, there's already been a proven test case by a security company who have built I think it was a Python program that it acts as a keylogger, and they use ChatGPT to de-anonymize. I think that's what they were doing. The program every time, so it evaded every EDR out there. It was able to steal credentials, and it changed. It was polymorphic, so it changed every time. The code was changing constantly, so there was no way to scan it once with EDR, and then when it runs again, it couldn't scan it again because the code had already changed. Same application, it was doing the same thing, but the logic behind it was changing every time. But not only that, I mean, we're seeing with AI, so we've already seen more intelligent phishing emails, and that's only going to get worse. Of course, we're seeing through AI, not even just ChatGPT, but AI in general, the whole deepfake situation that we're running into. That's just gotten worse over the last 6 months, probably. And that itself is improving. Used to, you could see a deep fake and you can tell by the eyes or the smile, or they couldn't, for whatever reason, AI could not put 5 fingers on a hand. It would put 7 or 8. But even now, in the last 6 months, it's getting harder and harder to tell if it's fake or not.
Wow.
So I think we're definitely already living in the ugly. And truth be told, there's not a lot of ways to stop it outside of normal technologies that we're doing, like with your email security systems, protecting against phishing attacks. So if you're using a good email protection system that's using its own AI and its own ML, and it's seeing still the common phrases, the common characteristics of a phishing email, that, hopefully we're swatting those down. But it's going to, I have up until now, everyone keeps saying, oh, we'll see AI versus AI in 5 years. And I've always said, no, that's dumb. But now in some aspects of it, you're kind of already seeing it. Yeah, with the phishing tool, with phishing protection systems using AI and AI crafting emails to attack. There's already a little bit of that there. Is it full blown AI versus AI cyber wars? No. Will we get there? Probably. But that's kind of my take on at least from a security centric ugly situation. If we want to go back to Skynet, we can.
No, I think I like your interpretation of ugly. How about you, David?
We're seeing it. I read about this a lot. There are stories of high school and college professors getting papers turned in written by ChatGPT. I saw an article this past weekend. The University of Iowa has a phenomenal journalism school, and the article is the English degree dead, right? Because ChatGPT will be writing all of our stuff. And so that's part of that bad. And how do we evolve with ChatGPT? What I think we need to do in the security space is find a way to evolve with it. Think outside the box. How do we start to put controls? Back to the university, they have a counter tool, if you will, that's supposed to be able to detect ChatGPT written papers. And so professors are using that. Yeah. And so now we've got an arms race of people using ChatGPT to write a paper, and the professors are using another tool to detect it. And then the ChatGPT tool gets better, and it goes back and forth. And the premise of the article was, is the English degree dead? And I might argue that it's hard to argue against the thesis. So, I do like what I'm seeing from some of the larger organizations like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, as they are trying to put some moral compass, if you will, behind AI, behind the tools that are using these language modules. Mm-hmm. But Suzanne, I don't know how we get the cat back in the bag. I don't think we can. So I think we have to figure out how to live alongside it, how to put controls in place to block, detect, respond to those behaviors that are consistent. And I think, the other piece is those behaviors will continue to get better and better and be harder for people like Aaron and I to detect them. And so it's going to be an interesting next 5 years, to Aaron's point.
All right. As we wrap things up, I think this will be a good time and a good opportunity for David and Aaron for you to close out with best advice for those listening who may also be managing teams of users who leverage ChatGPT. Give them some advice on best practices from a security standpoint.
Aaron, you want to go first?
From a security standpoint of how to protect yourself against it, or just I'm trying to craft a good response here.
Like, my advice would be, don't upload any private information from your corporation. If you're going to market with a new product, don't ask ChatGPT to interpret it, embellish it, make it look good, because guess what? Now you've just given ChatGPT all of your secret sauce.
Yeah, I would say that.
I was just going to say that's where I was going to go to is focus on awareness. Teach your people what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. Understand that just like Facebook, if you put your data out there, it's not private. You might think it is, but you can't. There's no expectation of that privacy. The bad guys, knowing that there is potentially intellectual property, some opportunity to make money in the ChatGPT world, are going to try to circumvent, compromise, take advantage of those systems. So don't think for a second that what you're doing is private. And just teach your people what they should and shouldn't do. I think awareness has to be a big piece of that strategy to help protect against ChatGPT.
I think that kind of echo off of what you're saying. I think that's the only strategy for an individual user right now. With everything else going on, we're, from a security perspective, it's going to be a technology versus technology space fight. But in terms of what you can do yourself, kind of what you just said, what you won't post on Facebook, do not post in ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. It's owned by an organization, and whether they decide to one day start data mining that out to their companies, or they get breached themselves and someone gets into that neural net and now they've got all of the data. Yeah, just keep it simple.
Yeah. And I think the last point I'd make, Susanna, is don't assume the output you get from ChatGPT is completely accurate either. You use some common sense as you review the output, and make sure you're not telling people that, Hillary Clinton won the election, or these case laws that don't exist, because you will lose when the facts come out.
Especially don't use it on a murder trial.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. Thank you to our guest, Aaron Martin. And thanks to our listeners for joining us. If you have feedback for Aaron or David or anyone on the Overwatch Managed Cybersecurity team, please contact us at podcast@highwirenetworks.com or leave a comment below. And be sure to join us for our next episode. It is all about the next evolution and advancement of how to simplify cybersecurity for the hybrid and distributed workforce. Can it really be in the web browser? Stay tuned to find out. It's going to be a good one. Until next time, I'm Susanna Song.
And I'm Dave Barton.
And this is Cybersecurity Simplified. From all of us here at Overwatch by Highwire Networks, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, rate the episodes you enjoyed, share, and leave us a comment. We'll catch you next time on the Cybersecurity Simplified podcast. Remember, the more you know about cybersecurity, the safer you'll be. To learn more, visit us at highwirenetworks.com/podcast.